Oh my god! What did we just do? We just won the race.
Hello, welcome again to another review video. This time I have here a Minichamps scale 1/18th resin model. Resin, yes indeed. And it's a model car I've been looking forward to immensely. This is a Scuderia AlphaTauri Honda AT01 from the 2020 Italian Grand Prix as driven by Frenchman Pierre Gasly. The 2020 Formula 1 season was yet another year of dreary Mercedes dominance in the turbo hybrid era. This in a year heavily disrupted because of the COVID-19 worldwide pandemic didn't do the sport any good. Luckily, there were a few highlights in between the Hambot Fur races, and it's also a good thing that most of these things happened late in the season, so this is what people remember most of 2020. There was the emergence of George Russell, cruelly missing out on a first win in his one-off outing in Hamilton's Mercedes. The first win for Sergio Perez in his pink Mercedes, Racing Point. The miracle of Grosjean at Bahrain. And of course, my personal highlight, you guessed it, Lance Stroll first pole in Turkey. Bruh. No, of course, it is AlphaTauri and Pierre Gasly's first win in Formula 1. Gasly made his Formula 1 debut back in 2017 for Toro Rosso, the predecessor of AlphaTauri. He quickly adapted to Formula 1, which is quite impressive given the fact that he was also still competing in the Japanese Super Formula Championship. In fact, he was a title contender there and even skipped one Formula 1 race to go and try to win that title. A typhoon meant the last race was cancelled though, and gone was his chance to win a second championship in a row, being the reigning GP2 champion. He spent another year at Toro Rosso in 2018, which now had Honda engines on board. Gasly again impressed, scoring a fantastic 4th place in Bahrain early on. When Daniel Ricciardo moved to Renault, Pierre was quickly announced as Max Verstappen's teammate at Red Bull Racing for 2019. That year, however, almost everything went wrong for Pierre. He struggled at the senior Red Bull team, and during the summer break he was demoted back to Toro Rosso. To make matters even worse, Pierre's best friend, Formula 2 driver Antoine Hubert, was killed at Spa the first weekend back at Toro Rosso for Gasly. But there, the story takes another turn, and if you want to know what exactly changed Pierre, I suggest you read his strong column on this website, the Players Tribune. He's not only a talented athlete, but a very well-spoken and very resilient human being. Later that year, after working his ass off again in the Toro Rosso, he scored his first podium finish at the Brazilian Grand Prix, outdragging Lewis Hamilton to the line to finish an emphatic second. For 2020, the team would be rebranded AlphaTauri to promote the Red Bull-owned clothing company. Their first car, the AT01, was a beauty, and it proved to be competitive as well, but what happened in Monza, no one could and would have expected that. Gasly and AlphaTauri repeated the feat of Sebastian Vettel in 2008 and scored their first wins in Monza. Even though luck was involved, Gasly was strong all race, keeping his head cool when it mattered and holding off Carlos Sainz and Lance Stroll in their faster machines. The scenes when he crossed the line were unbelievable, even though there were no spectators allowed that day. I really love the way he screams on the team radio, "We did it, we won the race, what did we do?" It shows you how much of a team player Pierre really is and how he was genuinely almost happier for his team than for himself. Redemption for Pierre, and you can bet your ass he had his friend Antoine in his head the whole time. Gasly is still an AlphaTauri driver as we speak, having scored yet another podium in 2021 in Azerbaijan. He is now an established Grand Prix race winner, something that can never be taken away from him, no matter what happens next. After the race in Monza, Minichamps quickly announced a 1/43 scale version of the AlphaTauri. To my surprise, they didn't include a 1/18th version, even after such a popular first win. After months of pestering Minichamps on social media, they finally announced a 1/18th model car of the Italian Grand Prix. Rival brand Spark had already announced a version of their own, but their model has not been released yet. The Minichamps version then comes in this standard 1/18 style packaging they use for all their resin models. It's just a regular black box with a bit of model info on the side here, and as usual all the licensing info on the bottom. The car then comes in a styrofoam clam inside, so the whole packaging clearly has no presentation purposes at all. The model itself then comes on the standard Minichamps base. On it is a shiny plaque with again all of the model's info. You can also see the model barely fits onto the base. This is how enormously big Formula 1 cars have become today. Before we get on to the model car, let's first have a quick look at the half-scale mini helmet I have here. And it's a signed replica of Pierre's race-specific helmet he used at the race at Monza. And I'll do an in-depth review of this helmet in another video. I'll leave a clickable link right here in the corner, and then another one at the end of this video. Let's move on to the model car itself then. And straight away I'll let you know that I've done some modifications on it. So the way it looks now was not the way it looked like when it came out of the box. I must admit that initially I was actually a bit disappointed. At first sight the model looks okay. The colors look nice with the gloss white in combination with the matte dark blue. The special driver figurine grabs your attention and you can spot some nice small details here and there. And there are also some nice body panel lines all over the model. But unfortunately one of the things that look off from the get-go is the ride height, especially at the front. When you look at the picture of the actual race, you'll notice that the front wing should almost be touching the ground, whereas on this model it's quite high up. And yeah, this is quite important in my opinion, and not something that you can see past like a missing decal or wrongly placed antenna. So yeah, this is my first disappointment on this model. Moving to the cockpit area then, and that special figurine. And this is what sets the model apart from Spark's effort, and it's the unique selling point of this model car. Unfortunately, I was again disappointed with what I saw. It's nice that Minichamps went through the effort of making a totally new figurine with both fists aloft celebrating the victory, but the detailing on it is pretty bad. The hands themselves, they're acceptable, but the decals on it are misaligned, not only on my model. And then the decal of the Casio watch on the left fist is, well, simply terrible. And they have done some nice crisp decals for the Mercedes drivers with the IWC watches on it in the past, so why is this one so bad compared to those? The helmet then looks nice at first sight, but here too the decals of the helmet overlap the visor, which is a bit annoying I think. It can easily be solved by first applying the decal of the helmet and then finish it by laying the visor on top, but yeah. I corrected it on my model by simply painting over the overlap, but as you can see the red paint I used is not an exact match, but I think it still looks better than before. It's also a shame Minichamps doesn't use the fabric or plastic belts even with photo etched seat belts on the resin models anymore apparently. As you can see here from this 2017 McLaren model, they still had them back then. And I'm aware that with the halo and the arms in the air you can barely see the belts, but it still would have been a nice touch. The steering wheel then looks nice though. It has a very clear and crisp LED dash panel and buttons and knobs, but you have to tell me if you can make detailed steering wheel decals, then why not for the gloves? I mean, yeah, the back of the wheel even has the team's URL on it in really tiny letters, so yeah. Also, next to the cockpit on my model, on the right side of the car, the side pod's aero part has this noticeable gap in between it, and normally it should sit flush with the model, as you can see here on the other side, and you can also not press it down into the slot for it, it just won't move unfortunately. The halo then kinda saves it a bit, which is ironic of course. It's nicely shaped with this small boomerang wing on top. The base of the halo on the top then has a small gap in between the parts on top of the bulkhead, which should normally be closed up. That's where the rear facing camera is sat in normally. But yeah, the cockpit is a bit of a letdown in my opinion. Let's move on to the wheels then. And here I was not too disappointed. The only thing that I can say is that the wheels are maybe a bit too shiny originally, but this is just a personal opinion and something that is actually quite easily fixed. So if you ever want to do it yourself, here's a tip for you. Just use a simple dark eyeshadow and brush it onto the wheels. You can then blow the excess off and voila, you get slightly darker, more subdued wheels. The wheels themselves are not too greatly detailed. There's almost no detail behind the rims either. The rears do have these small ribs in the rim, which looks really nice. The cone-shaped central locking wheel nuts are not colored in a specific color. They look the same on both sides as well. You might have noticed that I added some handwritten time markings like the S and D's for the left and right wheels, as I usually do. I also then added the barcode decal and tried making the tires look dirty and used. I still need to find a good way to give the thread of the tires an after race look though, with tire pickup and everything on it, but might be something for in the future. Onto the wings then, and as I mentioned, I think the front wing was too high up originally. Not only that, but if you then look at how the wing is fixed to those nose pillars, you'll notice some excess glue marks as well. And on these pictures here, I did not touch the model yet, so this is exactly how it came out of the box. The wing itself then is just molded in one piece, so no gaps in between those cascades. All the small detailing parts are just colored in plastic bumps basically, and no nice photo etch parts anymore Minichamps used before on the resin models. The small tire sensors do look good though. The rear wing then and the two main planes are also molded in one piece. There are only these two large pieces, so I don't know why they didn't go for two separate elements there. The DRS system then is also a bit of a miss. I can hear you thinking, it does look good though. Well, it seems detailed and refined and it connects nicely to the wing elements, but if you look at it from the front, back or from up top, you'll notice it's just paper thin. It's a paper thin piece, almost like a razor blade, and in real life it has a bit more volume than this. On the positive side, the wing does have the small and shallow chord that is typical for Monza. Minichamps also noticed the wing didn't have the central pillars for that race and that the end plates were shaped differently than before. The end plates then have this big cut in it, which looks nice. In front of that there's a big slit in it, but unfortunately this is not cut out, nor are these small gills on the bottom. In the end, I did manage to reposition the front wing to a lower setting. I also removed the glue marks and added this white band around the connection points of the nose and wing. And these were missing on the model originally and actually cover up any glue marks I might have left myself. Let's now have a look at some of the other small details then. The nose of the car is nicely shaped with this typical cape underneath it. The camera pods on the nose look nice too, with the carbon texture on it and the strangely shaped connection points. The suspension looks detailed and has carbon fiber texture weaved in the plastic. I do like these protruding pickup points on the tub for the upper wishbones as well. The brake ducts then lack a bit of detail though, and the turning vanes underneath the nose and tub have no cuts in it, unfortunately. The antennas on the tub look very refined, but this Red Bull style S-duct outlet then is not. They didn't even color in the small slit to make it look like it's open. The barge boards then are not very detailed either. This of course is a very complex area for model makers, so I mean they can be forgiven if they skip on the finer detail here, as cutting out all the gaps would make it extremely fiddly. Only here on the sidepod arrow they could have tried to make a small cut here, I think. The airbox then has this split intake configuration, but the holes are not deep enough in my opinion. Also, the small 3D pull rings are gone now, and this was actually one of my favorite small detail on the Minichamps resins. The engine cover and the side pods are very nicely shaped then. The floor of the model also has carbon weave in the plastic and shows some detail like these gills here. Unfortunately, only the big slit here is actually cut out, and all the others are not, which is a bit of a shame. Onto the rear then and the suspension, and it has this nice thin metal colored pull rod suspension arm sticking out, which is typical of the Red Bull family cars. The exhaust and intercooler pipes then are not very detailed, but they don't look too bad either. The crash structure then has no carbon fiber detailing on it, and the diffuser is not too good either, with all these elements just fused together. The vertical strakes underneath don't look too bad though. On the positive side, I'd say it's nice of Minichamps to actually make this model car, as they had not originally planned on doing so. Also kudos on the effort of making a different style figurine and to make it more or less race specific, like the shallow rear wing cord and the 50 races with Honda sticker on the side pod. On the other hand, I wish it still had the photo etch parts like they used to do on the seat belt, front wing, the engine pull ring. It's also a shame that the slots in the floor and the rear wing are not cut out anymore like they used to do. Then there is the front wing, which was actually too high up, and then of course the razor thin DRS part. But the most unforgiving things are actually the sloppiness on the front wing pillar that I had on my model, the way the side pod area part is not connected nicely, and the very poor decal on the figurine's hands. I really had my work cut out on making this model look decent though. Normally I just do the wheels and add a bit of race dirt if it's a finish line car, but now I had to fix the whole front wing, which was a lot of work. And then of course there were the small retouches that needed to be done on the helmet. With the modifications I've done, my initial feeling of disappointment has ebbed away a bit, but in the end I think there are too many things wrong with it to call it a good model car. Considering its price and Minichamps' reputation, you would expect more from them. I'm very happy that they did go through the effort of making this model after all, but I wish the resin department would at least keep their high quality they produced a few years ago and not spiral down like they are doing at the moment. So this was the review of this Gasly First Twin AlphaTauri model scale 118 from Minichamps. Thanks a lot for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like down below if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more of these kind of reviews, and hopefully I will see you again in the next one.
Thanks to you, we did it! We did it!